So, Kiva coming in. No prior history given. Good to see you.
Good evening.
Take a seat. Don't need to stand on parade or anything. It's kind of a relaxed situation I like to have held around here. So, how can I help?
Well, I'm not really sure how this all works. Do I just start talking?
It kind of helps. I mean, I like to establish a baseline with people. If you want to tell me about yourself, go right ahead. If you want to jump straight into your problems and what's currently ailing you, why you feel you need someone like me to help you, feel free to start with that. It's wherever you would like to start.
Then I think it might be most helpful to start with who I even am.
Go
We
right
didn't
ahead.
really get a chance to talk all that much at the diner. My name is Kiva Bradford. I'm from Night City. Are you familiar?
I've heard the name. Never visited.
Well, for the uninitiated... For the uninitiated, it is, for lack of a better term, a corporate playground with a ridiculously high crime rate and a lot of people armed to the teeth.
Pretty much
Practically a
Zafira.
police state. If Zafira has a significant and overwhelming criminal underground, then yes. I can't say I'm familiar with Zafira.
Yeah, same kind of thing applies. A lot of corporate influence, a lot of people that are down and out on their luck trying to find ways to get out of the lifestyles, crime, violence, you know. I see it as normal. Apparently it's not really that, but yeah, sounds like we could have a sister city.
Something like that. We do see a lot of overlap. So, I guess explaining that is a good place to start so that you have some kind of frame of reference for why everything went so wrong.
Gives me a baseline of context, yes.
So, I am the child of a police officer, and, well, my mom didn't really have a job that I remember before she left. And I don't think she does anything now, given the state that I found her in, so we'll get back to her.
Familial issues.
The most important thing to know is that she left when I was about 5. And I'm sure this is already sounding like dozens of your other clients, so stop me if you've heard it before, but Mom walked out and Dad got worse. He was already kind of immature, but once Mom left, he really lost control. He didn't do anything that he needed to do about, making sure we keep the house or paying any of the bills or taxes or anything like that. And he didn't hire anyone else to do it, so I learned pretty quickly that I would have to. And that will be a running theme in my life, is people not doing the things they need to, and me having to pick up the pieces.
Burden of greatness. Inferiority complex?
I wouldn't say I grew up atypically from anyone else in Night City, but I find myself more and more talking about my childhood and other people finding atypical things about my upbringing. Mostly the parts of it that weren't so easy. usually just things my dad was doing.
No difficulty in
He was a real
emotion.
piece of work at his job. He would, steal people's lunches and,
Daddy issues again.
Constantly in trouble for some kind of misconduct. I mean, he practically had the entire form on his computer with like autofill stuff that, because he was filling out misconduct forms so often. And then he would go home, he would drink, and I would be left to do everything.
Pressures of society, familial.
I didn't realize that wasn't okay until I'd gotten older and gotten a chance to speak with some of my colleagues at school and they all, told me that wasn't how most families operate. Not every kid has to learn what a 401k is before they reach 8th grade.
Lack of childhood grew up too fast.
I almost wish that had been the extent of it. I would have been able to put up with that. But things got a lot worse when he attacked someone on the street. This popular fixer, some black dragon woman, spun a real sob story out of it. Because she had every right to. He arrested her under false pretenses and used his stun gun on her for way longer than he should have. And when it came up that there wasn't anyone at the intake desk at the precinct, he dumped her out, still wearing the handcuffs, and refused to take them off before getting off shift.
Of brutality.
The news got a hold of his body cam footage and turned it into this huge thing. It was really bad for the department.
The father.
I heard a little bit about it, but not a whole lot, since he didn't really tell me a whole lot of anything about what he did for work. I would later come to find that was because he was actively arranging operations to circumvent police activity, to drive up funding for the department. Because if there's more crime, then there must be more need for police officers. Right? Like I said, he's a real piece of work.
Father had insecurity issues about...
And I'm sorry for rambling so much, but you did kind of ask.
This is exactly what I need. Please continue.
So the reason why I say that things started to go wrong when he attacked that woman is that she had friends in seedy places. One morning, I'm just sitting at our coffee table watching the news, and suddenly the door gets kicked down, and I got hit by the door. That was a pretty nasty bruise. And these people come bursting in, claiming that it was some new NCPD training exercise, but I knew pretty darn well that they wouldn't cause any property damage, especially at a public residence. I knew they had to be mercenaries, out to hunt my dad. But something must have stopped them, because pretty much as soon as they walked in, they assessed the situation and walked right back out again. Not long after, my dad was working some kind of case about a runaway corporate operative or something like that, involving a corporation with dubious morals at best, which doesn't exactly narrow it down. So
Standard, yes.
I'll explain a little further. There's this. The best term I have for it is a housekeeping company, but the maids and butlers that they employ do a whole lot more than just cleaning. Some of them tote guns, some of them will manage your finances for you, and some of them are domestic, we'll call them.
When the butler does more than
That-
buttle. Understandable.
So, my dad wanted one of the other ones and signed a lifetime contract with them. And to pay for it, he gave them my college fund and signed a contract saying that I could serve as collateral if he, if for some reason the contract was voided.
And here we start getting towards the big
It
problems.
wasn't
Good.
legally binding by any stretch, because even for as messed up as Night City is, something like that wouldn't fly. It would be too bad for optics. But it was the notion that he would have so easily signed me away like that. It hurt. And that is just one of several times where he put his own enjoyment over my safety.
So in general,
When
you've
I
been
was little and
emotionally
he-
neglected.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
When I was little and he couldn't find a babysitter, he would just lock me in the holding cell at the precinct with all the creeps and weirdos.
So how has
So,
this made you feel throughout the years then?
I will be honest, it hasn't made me feel great, which is probably to be understood, because, I don't think anyone would feel that great after being tossed aside at pretty much every turn.
Okay.
So,
I'll give you a quick test just to see if something is coming to mind here. So, just a few questions, all right? So, on a scale of, say,
sir.
never to very often, okay? How hard do you find it to relax, to unwind, or sit still in general? Like, have peace of mind with your thoughts, just sitting somewhere.
that's a straight 10.
So, very hard?
I don't really feel any ability to calm down, as it were.
Okay. Have you had any issues with your stomach? Cramps or the general feeling of nausea?
I used to get nauseous a lot when it first started, but since I fixed my diet and, got control of what I was eating, that helped enough that it's not really noticeable anymore.
So you still sometimes feel cramps or a little nauseous?
On really stressful days, yeah.
Okay, so I'll give that a sometimes. Sure. Irritability. How easy is it for you to become distressed and annoyed at things going on around you? Not just people, but even a task you're currently doing if it doesn't go the way that you think it should be. Do you become enraged quickly?
Yeah, that happens fairly frequently, though I don't really do a lot about it.
Okay, no good coping mechanism, but it also occurs very often. Fair, fair. Do you ever feel short of breath? Like your chest tightening, do you find it hard to breathe sometimes?
Only during panic attacks.
Okay, yeah.
So sometimes, I guess.
How about your equilibrium? Do you feel dizzy or unsteady at times?
I don't think I've had any issues with that, no.
Okay, so that's a never surprisingly. Okay. How about your sleeping patterns? Do you find it difficult to fall asleep, or do you fall asleep easily but wake up early? You don't have long, restful periods of sleep.
For a while I slept fine, but these past few months, well, put it to you this way. Last night had been the first time I slept in about 170 hours, which is
So,
egregious.
very often, understandable.
Yeah,
So, living your life in general, how often do you feel overwhelmed by it all? People,
constantly.
situations, constantly? Okay. And I will not answer this one for you, but I can take a very educated stab at the answer. You feel quite nervous and on edge most of the time?
Yes, sir.
Understandable. How about the steadiness of your hands? Do you find if you're writing, typing, or doing things, if you find it difficult to do that because they're shaking or feel numbness in them?
If I'm overwhelmed, then I get shaky, but usually I am pretty good at about keeping a steady hand.
So just sometimes?
Yeah. Sorry I'm being so wordy with my answers.
Oh, no, not at all. I'm more than happy to take information on board. It means that I can give a more concise diagnosis of things. People forget, I'm not just here to give CBT. I'm here for diagnostics as well. I like to make sure that if someone requires medication, that I can also help with that. So, I'll tell you what, we'll make this the
then I
last
should
question.
probably.
Just in general.
Go ahead.
Are you constantly worried about things? Just generally? Not even a
Yes, sir.
anything specific. Okay, just all the time?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay.
I don't really, get a chance to not worry.
Yes, okay. Well,
Because a lot has happened between my dad signing that contract and now.
fair enough. Well, since those have gone there, you were bringing something up just before that last question. What was that? Just want to circle back around onto that. For a moment.
You had mentioned medication, so I thought it might be worth noting that I'm currently taking immunoblockers to help control the adverse effects from my cybernetics on my psyche.
Right, antipsychotics. Wonderful. Okay, well, in that case, I would also have to wonder. An SSRI? No. Something more specific. No worries about that. Do you happen to have a specific Ripper doc, or do you shift around?
I don't really have an official Ripper doc. I got my eyes worked on by a friend of mine at the shutdown not too long ago, but as far as actual medicine goes, I used to have a primary care provider back in Night City, but I don't live there anymore.
Right. I've had a coworker recently have an ocular implant as well, so makes easy enough. Do you happen to have, by any chance, any empties or packaging for your current antipsychotics? Just to make sure that if I am to prescribe you anything else, that they won't conflict.
Yeah, I think I do, in case this question came up.
Does help.
She'll place an orange bottle onto the counter. Let me get the name of the actual drug for you, because there is actually a drug.
I hope you don't mind me keeping the bottle, right? You don't need it anymore.
Yeah, no, it's empty, so that's fine.
Wonderful. Okay, so dosage seems average, not egregious, which is good. She's not on a copious amount, not like Gunner at least, so I don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to conflict too badly as long as there's nothing mixed. At least in a negative way.
Yeah, I can't find the name for this. It's some big long thing starting with a B, I think.
Probably something along the lines of, say, a benzocyanoxarine or something.
Something idol, I think.
Well, if it's a beta blocker as well, as long as I take that into account, I should be able to also recommend other things that won't counteract the effects nor create negatives as well, since I can definitely tell that you've got one thing going on at the moment, but we can continue talking for now to see if anything else you say raises anything in my particular areas. So you've got major issues with your father.
If you're looking for, active mental health conditions, I've also been diagnosed with PTSD and autism, so.
On the spectrum. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with being on the spectrum. You seem high functioning and understandable of the fact that you are so, which means that you can live a fine and productive life without being medicated for such.
Right.
People tend to over-medicate when it comes to autism, unfortunately. It's more of a behavioral and teachable thing. Certain behavioral patterns are, of course, negative, but can be counteracted quite easily by showing people that are on the spectrum and taking the time with them to find out what causes them to have difficulties in the first place. I mean, you could go down saying things like Asperger's, with people finding it more difficult to actually communicate. But people with Asperger's can communicate perfectly fine. They just need to be given that extra time to get the words that they need out, or have the words that they want to get out given to them, taking the time to help them along. Autism's not a bad thing. Post-traumatic, on the other hand, potentially a bit more of an annoyance. I wouldn't go with SSIDs then. Lexapro? Nah, that wouldn't work. See, unfortunately for most people, when they contact me, they think I'm just a therapist. That's a psychologist. In my case, I'm a psychiatrist. I'm a doctor. Psychologists aren't.
Right.
But my particular field is specifically helping in the diagnostics of mental illness, manias, or various emotional distressors that require medication to at least alleviate, outside of things like behavioral therapy that a psychiatrist will normally refer you to a psychologist. But since the amount of people that need to talk through things and to be able to diagnose people in the first place takes a little bit of therapy, well, I've started dabbling, I guess. But
it's nice to have the tools at your disposal.
It definitely helps, I can tell you that for sure. Is there anything specific outside of the current issues with your father, say, in the more recent times, that has been actively pressing on you, that is forefront in your mind, that you find is difficult for you to get along with, to understand, to move past?
3 instances, actually. All involving gun violence.
A pretty common
The,
problem.
the first one, I was staying with a friend of the family after... Oh, yeah, I didn't even mention that. My dad completely lost his mind.
Like
He went
full-blown
cyber
psychotic
psycho.
break? Ah, full break. Oh, makes sense. Though I assume
They're
that you
still
didn't
looking for him.
have a good connection with him. The fact that you seem to be emotionally attached and actually empathetic does lead me to believe that you still at least care for him in some degree. Otherwise, he wouldn't feature so prominently in your thoughts. Most people in general
I
tend
just want him to be better.
Unfortunately, by the sounds of it, he is not a nice person and would need to actively reach out to someone like myself, especially if they've actually gone through a psychotic break, to, bring themselves to a better place. But that's whether or not someone doesn't take them down if they're a current and
Oh God, I
present
hope
danger.
not.
Unfortunately, the way it is of the world, if someone is a current and present danger to both themselves and the people around them, especially when it comes to violence, as many of us are well aware, we all hope for the best in that it's a non-lethal takedown, but that's all we can do is hope. So I will say at least hold on to that.
Yeah. So, yeah, that in and of itself was another traumatic experience because he was a gibbering mess when we found him, and someone was heading up to the apartment to try and kill him again. And he the man who attacked the apartment, I tried to stop him, and he hit me with the stock of his gun. Gave me a black eye. And that isn't even related to the 3 instances of gun violence I was about to tell you about.
Being a Zephyrian, I myself understand very much so about gun violence. That's why I carry one myself, even if I am a doctor.
So I was staying with a family friend because my dad went crazy. And so I was in the room that I was staying in, and there was this man outside on a riding lawnmower, and he was trying to dig out a pothole using the blades of the riding lawnmower, and it was making a whole lot of noise, and it wasn't really doing anything, it was just making noise. So I leaned out the window to, shout at him to stop because I was trying to focus on my homework. And the bullet grazed my cheek, so I ducked. And I realized that it might not be such a great idea to leave an open window in an active firefight, so I stood back up to try and close it and caught a round in the shoulder. I crawled to the front door, and if it wasn't for an active criminal buying me a trauma team subscription, I would have died. So that was number 1. Number 2 came as a result of some interdimensional travel gone screwy.
PTSD.
It wasn't the
especially
leaving
firearms.
that was the issue, it was the coming back. I had meant to go home, but I wasn't specific about where where in the city I ended up. So I ended up in this place called Pacifica. And if you are not familiar, the crime there got so out of hand that the police just don't go there anymore. They don't bother. Some gang members found me and did the whole dance monkey dance routine by shooting at my feet, so I started running, and they started chasing.
I'm waiting until
That friend of the family that I had mentioned was also on the police force. He was a lieutenant.
Hopefully that's not the case.
So as soon as he found out that I was in trouble, he gunned it over to try and help. Another mercenary also came with him because she cared about my well-being. I guess I had made some friends at this, for lack of a better term, criminal den called the Afterlife. It's a bar, and the center for a lot of those less than legal dealings.
For some reason, it makes me want to
So
suddenly
they show
quote
up on
Star
the
Wars.
Something like that.
Basic response to a bad
So
joke.
they show up on the scene,
Shows
and
positivity. It's good.
people died.
No anger issues present.
And as that mercenary was making sure I was safe and tending to me, one of the gangsters quick-hacked her gun, and it dumped a magazine of ammunition into my thigh.
Huh.
I don't really have great luck with guns, if you couldn't tell.
That's why I keep my first round loaded specifically with something non-lethal. Not that it would do much to me, considering the fact that I am, well, not exactly of the mortal anymore.
Right.
But I can definitely foresee how that would be distressing, especially having that amount of damage done to oneself and potential bills. We all know what medical care costs, after all. I'm a doctor, that's why I got into the profession.
Yeah. And the last time was probably the most upsetting. So, I mentioned making some friends at the Afterlife, that bar.
You did?
Well, I have had issues acting my age recently. Well, not even recently, just forever. Because I was forced to grow up so quickly. And it had been, expressed to me that it might be an issue, so I looked for help on how to act more like a kid.
Regression therapy. Huh. Bit of old hat, but understandable.
Kind of, yeah. And so I spoke with one of those mercenaries at that bar, because the way I saw it, they were all practically man-children anyways.
Let me guess.
If
They
you
told you
interacted
to
with
go
any of
to a sex worker and ask to be infantilized.
No, actually, he
surprising.
he was more than willing to. He was more than willing to, show me the ropes of how to, be a kid without being, immature about it. Unfortunately, the day I went there, I'd been there a couple times prior, but when I went there to meet with him, the bar got attacked by these giant robots, and I don't even. I found a corner to hide in. I didn't really know where else to go. I couldn't run away, away from the building because they were outside. So I
You did the smartest thing available
found
to
the
you.
closest. Yeah, I found a corner and hid in it, but it wasn't exactly covered by anything, so I was found pretty quickly. And for what felt like a solid 15 seconds, I was staring down the barrel of a gun taller than you are.
That's saying something, as I have been described as a lanky prick before, so.
I, someone found me and managed to get me away from that just before they painted the walls with my gray matter and dragged me back to the kitchen where they'd set up a safe place. One of them fought their way back there and did the whole spray and pray routine, and I caught a ricochet in the gut. Ever since that day, I've had horrible nightmares. I'll try to get to sleep, and then about 5 minutes later, I'm awake, screaming. Very recently, I decided that Night City wasn't a safe place for me anymore, so I skipped town.
Definitely has generalized
And
anxiety disorder.
I'm staying at the shutdown now.
Okay. I've heard of the place. Seems reasonable from what I've been made aware. Okay. I've got a fair bit for you there, at least. Nothing
Yeah.
that isn't treatable. So, you definitely, to me, have presented with GAD, or Generalized Anxiety Disorder. I would put you towards something along the lines of major depressive disorder, but you're not exhibiting the fact that you've given up on things because you're still actively trying to move forward, which definitely takes you out of that category, which is a very good thing, as MDD is not something people want to be part of.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't count my chickens before they're hatched. I've had some pretty bad days.
Yes, but the fact that you have stepped forward and come past that to specifically find someone like myself to try and help you through these kind of things definitely speaks to your strength of character in the fact that you are not giving up. Because giving up is what kills people.
Nearly did.
Exactly. And so the fact that you are sitting in front of me talking about your problems openly and getting it off your chest is most definitely a very positive sign in the first place. So, do you know what an SSRI is?
I've heard the term used in reference to antidepressants.
Yes, it's a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Specifically to make sure that it stops you from feeling as depressed or anxious in general as you feel, since that little test that we did definitely put you on the high scale towards having a, well, anxiety disorder, just to put it simply. I'm not going to get into anything specific, but you most definitely are looking at, having to medicate for that. Not simply just with antipsychotics specifically designed for interrupting the negative effects of bionics, as that is what anti-cyberpsychosis drugs cause. People forget the
Right.
differentiation between the fact of having a naturally occurring mania or psychoses requires a different kind of medication completely from something that is beta blocking the signals from those optics. That's chrome
Right.
for you, though. So, what I would say
Yeah.
in your case, let's see. I would go with Oxytin. Lustral's definitely off the table. Cipramil. No. No. I would say in your case, Cipralex is probably the right choice. It's a low-end SSRI, so you shouldn't have to worry about it interfering with your antipsychotics. It should take the edge off. Should hopefully help you with your sleeping. I would definitely recommend one upon waking up and one before going to sleep. Following a proper regimen of actually taking the medication in the first place is always a good thing. At least it's a nice wow. Nice thing to be able to sleep properly, I guess. Sorry, I lost my own thoughts for a moment.
No worries. It's fine.
Plus, in general, if you really have to, I'd say go buy some weed.
I might just take you up on that.
Specifically, if you're going to somewhere, get a good sativa strain, not indica. Indica is a depressant. Indica will bring your mood right back down again. That will not counteract the drugs fully, but you're going to end up in a very kind of mixed mind state there. Whereas a good sativa bring you up, get you thinking about the right positive things, especially when you've got that in your system. Normally, I'm not the biggest fan of mixing drugs, but, well, if you're having one pill at breakfast, around about lunchtime, 1 o'clock, probably nothing wrong with smoking a small joint. Or taking an edible if you're not a fan of the thought of smoking. I normally don't recommend smoking, but, well, that's a bit of a vice of my own. Something at least that I can do that doesn't negatively affect me, so. As for the rest of things, though, what I will say is follow the course of treatment currently. See how you feel about that. If it does help you, I still want to check back in with you at a later date when you want to set one up. Make sure that the treatment is working. See how you're feeling. See if the thoughts are currently playing over in your mind more. My number is always open. You don't have to worry about trying to contact me. You can contact me whenever you need to. I don't exactly sleep. Right?
Good to know.
So, reach out if you feel you need to, by all means. Even if you don't want to come in for another session, at least hearing from you saying, that has helped, I can easily refill the prescription for you if you need it. If it starts wearing off, I could alternate a different prescription around. As long as you stick to the actual recommended daily dosage, it shouldn't start wearing off anytime soon. The amount of people that think,
Right.
oh, I've missed a pill, I better take two, that's where the problems start occurring.
That's not how that works.
Exactly. Thank you. The amount of people that think that's how that works don't understand how it is to keep a chemical balance in a body system working. If you do need...
I think another session might help.
Exactly. If you do need another session...
This one
by all
certainly
means.
did.
Getting things off your chest in the first place, always a big thing. Add into the fact that once you've had a course of treatment, at least for a week, so that you can feel how that's helping you, get a different outlook on life, see that the world is not closed in as you think it is, and you can move forward in a healthy and constructive manner. We can talk more. We can help you formulate plans. We can see if you need a change in the medication, if you need a boost, if you need to go on to something slightly less invasive. We work together to find out the ways to make the patient happy.
It's appreciated, your diligence.
No, not at all. I'm a medical professional after all. Trust me, at this point in time, I've had several people tell me about the fact that their current therapists or previous therapists have literally done things against, well, I was almost going to say the Geneva Convention, but it's more like the Geneva Suggestions half the time. Although I think some people actually treat it more like the Geneva Checklist. Just how many of these can I tick off? It's kind of messed up. But yeah, it's the world we live in, right?
Are you sure you haven't been to Night City?
No, I'm a Zephyran, trust me. It's pretty much the same thing from what you're describing. I grew up rough as well. I know how it feels. I just got lucky in the fact that I pursued what I felt was going to get me out of that. And, well, it did. Didn't last for very long, because then I died. But, you know, fun times, right? We all come to ways of coping in our own way.
You're back now.
Yeah, it only took me 200 years before I got bored. Well, Kiva, this has been wonderful. So what I want to do, let's write you up a prescription here. Make sure you have enough for just the week. You shouldn't need to be taking any more than that. And you should start feeling beneficial effects after about 3 days. So at least give it 4 days before you contact me again, seeing if you want to get another appointment straight away or if you just want to talk. I want to at least make sure that the drugs are taking effect, that everything is evened out, and that you're not going through any side effects. Hopefully there shouldn't be any. The only problem may be your antipsychotics. They could be too strong, but that's up to a Ripperdoc. I do know some Ripperdocs. If you need a second opinion on whether or not you need a different kind of antipsychotic for your synthetics, I could easily refer you. But as it currently stands, I think it's not too bad for you. There you are.
Thank you, sir.
No worries. Any pharmacy should be able to fill that out. Maybe have to wait a few hours, so make sure that you've got like an ice cream bar or something nearby so you can go sit down and have something nice, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I might like that.
See? Nothing wrong with treating yourself a little bit, especially when you know that it's going to help your mood as well. That's half the problem when it comes down to depressive disorders. Being able to focus on the good and seeing it for itself as opposed to only focusing inwards on the bad things that are plaguing you. But don't worry. I'll help you get past that in a healthy fashion. Because I will never promise to get past it in a fast one. Because that means I'd be rushing a job and I can't have that.
I think it's better that we take longer on this than, than if we were to rush it.
Well, of course. It's always best to make sure that the patient is cared for. That's literally what the job entails. So, if the patient isn't happy and is suffering, I'm doing a shit job.
Right.
And that, I think,
That's just about our time, isn't it?
pulls up perfectly to our time. I'll at least see you to the door properly. I would shake your hand,
Yes, sir.
but I'm not exactly a handshaky kind of guy. So,
Yeah, I can imagine.
take your time, get yourself to where you need to be, pick up your prescription, follow the instructions on it. Not a problem that it should help you. Give it a couple of days first. Send me a message once you feel any of the effects start to actually kick in, good or bad. I'd like to at least double check. Then after that, give it another day, and we'll start figuring out whether or not you want to have an appointment sooner rather than later. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Not a problem. Well, it was a pleasure. I will hopefully not be seeing you again soon. Because, well, the later we leave it, the better, right?
That would mean something's gone horribly wrong.
Or horribly right.
Or horribly right.
Hey, two sides of the coin. Well, you have a lovely night, and I will see you around, okay?